back, everyone, to yet another episode of Kingdom of Dreams podcast, The Making of Stories. Today, my guest is a repeat guest, Shashi Ranjan, who was the director of Netflix series The Roshans. Today, we're talking about music and lyrics in the South Asian film industry, particularly that in India, and how over the years it has sort of demised and lost its essence and originality by imitating the Western music. Also, just a little side note on the podcast. This podcast was initially started off as a podcast on DreamWorks film, then it kind of became on cinema, then TV series and cinema. While I'm still maintaining that, one of the things that I'm going to incorporate every now and then is to have guests from people who are not in the industry, but they have an interesting story. So that's the key word now. It's the Story Kingdom of Dreams podcast, the making of stories. But again, I want to reiterate the aspect of cinema and film will always be there, but I think at its core, it's all about stories. But without further ado, here's my conversation with Shashi Ranjan. We talked about what we're going to talk about, and I had a conversation with somebody about this, and I normally do, and then you mentioned it, that how there's music and lyrics in a film.
Basically, music is in our DNA,
Mm,
especially our region, predominantly uh, this whole of North India, Pakistan, portions of Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan, where music has played such predominant, and shairi, of course. The best of poets have come from this area, you know. So it's ingrained. When the child is born, there is music. When you get married, there is music. Any occasion, your death has music. Everything has music in it. And the poetry, of course, you have Ghalib from this area. You have 100 other poets who have done great job. And I'm kind of frustrated with the kind of music India is producing right now, or for that matter, even Pakistan. I mean, there are such talented guys like Atif Aslam and so many others who have great voices, great talent, but the tunes. And the problem, to my mind, is this, Jawad, that there is a traditional way of making our music. Joe, world when there is no other country or other civilization has that we have a mukda, we have an opening, then we have an antara, and then we go into interludes. So this whole thing, American music or French music or no other music has this. Only our music had that, you know, and that's gone because we are aping West all the time, and all the tunes they start from the high notes and they go into other lyrics. There is no space for interlude, and that's why even today, or the old songs when you hear, you remember the interludes. You exactly know what interlude is coming or what lines. After 40 years, you can still hum the song, sing the song because the poetry was so deep rooted, the meanings were so nice, and they played a very crucial part in our storytelling. So the moment you take that out from your storytelling, it's very dry. Well, it works sometimes. There are certain stories where you don't need music, and I think some of the younger directors are doing a great job by not putting it. But the moment it comes at the right place and right time, it's a magic. Your sense memory of any good Indian film or any film of this region is through dialogues and music. So Lafazi plays a very important part in our culture, and which is diminishing day by day. It's a very sad situation. And इसका
yeah,
एक रीजन और इसका एक और रीजन जवाब जवाब ये भी है that we are not reading anything. We don't read literature, and especially our own literature, because the youngsters are more inclined towards watching Western movies and anything which is Western, attracts them. So they have forgotten our shires, our music, our tradition, and just aping whatever the West is throwing on you.
yeah. Have you seen, I'll get to your point, but do you watch Coke Studio from Pakistan?
Yes, I do, and I think they're doing great job.
So
Great job.
I probably didn't watch most of it up until the 2 seasons ago because they were recreating a lot of classic songs, which I would listen to here and there, but I wouldn't listen to it throughout. But the last season, the season before that, they came up with original songs, original music, original artists, original parts of the country that they would go to and discover people. And I think that is amazing because it's something raw, it's something original,
Yes,
and there's so much culture in those, right? So much
absolutely.
culture. And for me, I'm so glad you said about the older songs, even older songs for me, the 90s era, even maybe a little bit of early 2000s, I would say. But you're right, because I don't even remember many of the films, let alone music,
Do you
after
remember any? Yes.
early 2000s. I just don't, right? There's
Yeah.
like, how many songs do you know? I mean, there's the songs that we all like. I was watching, when I was watching the Roshans with my wife. And I'm not a 60s child or a 50s child. I'm a late 70s child. But anytime a tune would come in, and the same thing happened with the Romantics and Salim Javed documentary, Angry Young Men, like I would know the songs. And she would be
So
like, "How do you know the songs from the 1950s?" I'm like, "I don't know. I just do." Right? Because
yeah,
that's
it's
what
in
you
your
listen.
sense memory.
Yeah. Is you're listening
No.
to those cassettes and everything.
Yeah. So it was amazing.
But
And
why do but why do you think that's gone?
like I told you, the younger generation do not know literature. I mean, our literature they don't read. They read even Western literature. Look at the जुबान जितनी भी हैं, चाहे वो इंग्लिश है, हिंदी है, उर्दू है, वो सब सिकुड़ रही हैं. They're all shrinking. All the languages are shrinking. You're taking your slangs have become the language. Your WhatsApp language is now
Yeah.
coming. You don't know spellings. You do not know expression. People are losing expression. What language does to you is, or literature does it. It gives you vocabulary. It gives you a flight, which is totally lacking. Especially Urdu Zuban. Urdu Zuban has so much to give it. जो फ्लाइट उर्दू में है, I don't think any language in the world has that. And
I
it's
agree.
unfortunate that the younger generations are not looking at that language.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, for me, and I always wonder this, I say this to people that maybe I'm saying it because I speak Urdu, but from what I have sort of, if you look at, forget about Ghalib and Allama Iqbal and all those other poets, but if you just look at poetry in films, right? Like Gulzar, Javed Akhtar, Majrooh Sultanpuri, people like that, and if you majority of their work, with some exceptions, if you listen to their lyrics, they just have so much deep meaning.
Absolutely.
They don't say anything, but they say a lot. Like for me, the most pivotal example, I think I got into Urdu poetry and Javed Akhtar a lot knowingly. I mean, there was also Mr. India, but when 1942, A Love Story soundtrack came out, I specifically remember it was about 4 months before I went to a library here in Canada, and it was in the section, and I didn't even know what it was, and I just popped in the CD and I listened to it, and I listened to that soundtrack over thousands and thousands
Yeah,
of times. It's never because it has such deep meaning,
absolutely.
and you don't see that anymore. You just don't.
Jal Saab, the very first song which he wrote for a film called चलते चलते not चलते चलते तुमको देखा तो ये ख्याल आया जिंदगी धूप
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The
तुम
Jagdish
घना
Singh
साया.
one. Yeah,
Jagdeep Singh. I mean, what a guy who just started writing song and he wrote it in 10 minutes. It was Raman Kumar's film. And so, the lyrics, the words, मैं कहूँगा लफाज, लफाजी जो है, जो लफ्ज हैं, वो आपके जहन को एक ऐसा स्टिमुलेशन देते हैं which remains forever.
yeah.
उसका जो जो चाशनी है ना जुबान की, उसको भुलाना बहुत मुश्किल है. और मुझे उम्मीद है कि आपके प्रोग्राम को बहुत सारे पाकिस्तानी और इंडियंस देखते होंगे जो इस जुबान को समझते हैं. आई रियली रियली यू नो pray and advise them that speak your own language, even though you have a conversational language or practical language like English wherever you work. But this is the one which gives you that softness, that beauty, that flight. in your mind and in your heart is your Hindustani or Urdu.
And that's even more interesting here in the western part of the world. So, I can speak Urdu fluently. My kids can understand it. They can't speak it, but uh, in the next generation or two, it's just gone, right? Like it's just completely
Absolutely,
gone.
absolutely.
And but do you also think, see, one of the things that I always wonder about the whole thing with English, which I understand. I mean, it's a universal language. Everybody speaks it. I speak it all the time. I'm sure you do. Everybody does. But do you think in that part of the world, aside from the reasons that we outlined, WhatsApp and now there's AI and everything, there's also that approach of the fact that we were ruled by the British for a good 100 years almost, and that's still ingrained in us. Do you think that's also one of the
I think
reasons?
there is some hangover. Yes, Britishers have left for us. But that's a sad part that in spite of so many years bypassed, you still have that hangover. I think it has more to do with economics because English is the language which gives you rosy roti. Uh, so the zuban which gives you roti becomes your favorite zuban. Unfortunately, it hasn't happened with our languages. So I guess that is one of the biggest reason. But I think ये सेंसिटिविटी हम जैसे लोग जो इस तरह के बिजनेस में हैं जहां हम इसको उबार सकते हैं जहां हम ये खिदमत कर सकते हैं जुबान की वो हमें करनी चाहिए और मेरे जो वालिद मरहूम थे वो चूंकि उर्दू और फारसी में लिखते थे तो मुझसे हमेशा कहा करते कि मुझे बड़ा अफसोस है कि मेरी लाइब्रेरी जो है जिसमें 6-7 हज़ार बहुत नायाब उर्दू की किताबें थी कि ऐसा ना हो कि मेरी औलाद उस पर बैठ के चाट पकौड़ी खाए सो अपनी जिंदगी में कोशिश करना कि उर्दू की खिदमत हो सके तो जरूर करना एंड दैट्स एग्जैक्टली आई एम डूइंग इट बिकॉज आई कीप अ मुशायरा every year with Urdu poets and Hindi poets, this Ganga Jamni Tehzeeb, which we have inherited, to keep that alive and keep the sensitivity of language. I'm very, very sensitive about language. My nuktas, if my actor can't say zah, then I get really pissed. I said, you have no business to be on the set if you cannot say zah, kha, gha. If your sheen khab aapka durust nahi hai, so I'm sorry. Go home, learn and come back. मैं खत्म सहन नहीं कर सकता हूँ. It has to be खत्म.
That's interesting because I when we watch movies every now and then, I hear that word khatam, right? And I'm like, is it like something to do with the dialect of certain parts of India or what it is? But
Now,
yeah, the kha is always missing, 100%.
yeah, नुक्ता नुक्ता is evaporated. आपने खुदा को खुदा बना दिया है. आप खुदा है, खुदा का मीनिंग कुछ और होता है और खुदा का मतलब कुछ और होता है कि खोदने वाले खुदा कहते हैं. तो हर तीसरा एक्टर खुदा कहता है. मैंने कहा यार फॉर गॉड सेक दिस इज नॉट खुदा इट इज खुदा.
How do we? Okay, let me go back to the Coke Studio for a second. What are some of the songs or that came out recently that you really admired and why? Just one or two.
At the moment I can't really think, but there's so many, seriously. So many. I'm a great admirer of these new guys who are coming on Coke show. And I think Atif Aslam also has come from that route, if I'm not
I
mistaken.
I think so. I'm not sure myself, but I'm not sure 100%.
But there are many Pakistani and Indian singers who have come through this route and superb. So to me, that is a perfect balance of Western music and your traditional music. And that's why it is so fascinating that they
There
are not just aping, they're creating something out of two cultures.
there are two songs in there. One I can't remember, but the one I do remember is called Harkale, and there's sung by a American Pakistani who sings in English, and the guy on the opposing side sings in Pashto, right? And
Ah,
I will send you that link. It's like you don't even need to understand what they're saying, but you mean that you can read the subtitles and obviously understand the English, but there's just so much synergy in there that you feel like they're speaking the same language.
True.
And it's beautifully done. And there's another one that's in Urdu and Norwegian, which is interesting
Ah,
too.
interesting.
Yeah, yeah. So you will especially the most recent season, they really went. I don't know if you've seen any one. There's this one called 2 a.m. It's these two guys in the at 2 a.m. in the streets of Lahore. One of them is speaking about how love is all fake and love is all this and love is betrayal, love is this. And the other guy answers him back, no, it's not. It's the most beautiful thing. It's the most this and that. And it's so beautifully shot, sung, written, composed, everything.
How do you see, Jawad, the music playing? I mean, in old Hollywood movies, music did play a very big part, and whenever there was a good musical, it really created history. We see very few now songs even in Hollywood movies. What do you see? Do you see this the same reason, or you think there is something else?
I think so. I mean, there's movies like Sound of Music, and there was a lot of movies from Disney that came out in the 60s and 70s. Even the animation movies has a lot of songs. I think the songs part for the audience has kind of is staying in animated films, only in Disney animated films. It's not really showing up in any other animated films. And in live action, it's really rare. It's like once in a blue moon they will come in. And I think the reason for that is the audience does not have the appetite for it. They just don't. Like even me, for example, um, I can't watch a musical from beginning to end. It's just the way maybe I can, but I just at the moment I can't,
No,
right?
I feel
But
Jawad, if the songs is not part of your narrative, if your
yeah,
story, then they don't
yeah,
work. Like for example, my one of my favorite film is ABBA. This, I mean, they have songs back to back, but what a film! I mean, it moves you. You laugh, you cry, you jump with joy because so many songs, but the storyline is so beautiful.
yeah. So I was gonna give you that example of the film Mary Poppins, which came out about 60 years ago, with Julie Andrews, Dick Van Dyke, and I don't know if you've seen it, but it's basically about this nanny, these two kids who are not. Every nanny that comes in, they kick her out, and there's this sort of magical nanny comes in, and she just changes their life, and it's beautifully. It has memorable songs, like I still know the songs, but I think the same thing is happening here that has been happening in India or it happened here and it's happening there is that just to take animation, right? Like movies like Beauty and the Beast, Lion King, Aladdin, those songs, A Whole New World, Circle of Life, Be Our Guest, all those songs are so memorable. But the most recent, when I say the recent, in the last 20 years, the animation films that have been coming out with songs, it's not there. The lyrics
Yeah,
are not there. The music is
yeah.
not there. There's just I don't know if it's the same thing here that the element of lyrical poetry and music is dying out, what it is,
And
but
they're not part of the story. They just standalone songs, so they don't really work. But the
yeah,
moment a song comes a part of the story, it moves you. It has more longevity in people's mind. Standalone songs, yes, if it is exceptional, they they linger in your memory, but they fade away if it's just a standalone song, however good it may be. So it needs the emotional support of narrative uh, to be memorable. That's what I would say.
yeah. I wonder what can be done to revive all of that, right? Are we going through this pendulum shift where things are going this way and then automatically they will come back this way? It's just that shift that takes place.
I guess I think that has been the history of cinema all over the world. That it goes into an extreme thing and then it comes back, and so different generations keep exploring genres. Like Spielberg started a different genre altogether, and so many films. The whole new cinema started making films like that. Unfortunately, nowhere in the world the love stories or musicals is a trend right now. Whether you see whatever cinema which is vibrant, whether it is Hollywood whether it's India or a Chinese or any other, which is really commercial cinema, is not churning out musicals or romantic movies, much romantic movies. So I guess this is the people are experimenting. I think because of these Netflixes of the world, different kind of story, which never ever have been told on screen. So it's a new animal they're excited about, and that's I think is what happening. That's what I personally feel.
I'm glad you said Netflix and them, and I don't mean Netflix per se in general, but it's like streaming platforms, all of them. I think what's happened is that, and we pitch projects to different streaming platforms from time to time, and most of them, the answer is like no, but then you ask them, okay, why? Well, it doesn't, not for all of them, for some of them, it doesn't really fit the algorithm, right?
It
And
doesn't.
because fit the algorithm, like the, because
It's
because they have this thing that, yeah, from what I have been told, and I don't, there's no way to authenticate it. This is just somebody told me this, is that they have a system where they feed in this information, whatever the idea is, and they let that figure out. Now with the advent of AI, is like, is this going to work? Or is it going to generate us money? Is it going to get us subscribers? I think where it's the same system as, like, let's say that came out in the set 90s or the 80s or 70s, where the bigger the budget is, the more, bigger the stars are, the more people are going to watch it. I get that. But I think in doing so, you're losing those original stories, which are character driven, which are story driven, and you're putting every that aside and you're going with the numbers, which I understand because it's a business, right? But sometimes you have to take, like, 90s, for example, in Hollywood was one of the most incredible eras because companies like Miramax, which was started by the Weinstein brothers, DreamWorks, they ruled mid early to late 90s in terms of Oscar nominations because they made bold films. They made films that nobody was making before, independent films, bold films. And then they both collapsed and now it's over. Now it's a superhero world. So I think that somebody needs to take an initiative of giving voices to important stories. And I think it will come back. People are hungry for this stuff. I truly feel it.
But I always have this discussion with platforms and channel heads. So they all have this that our survey says this works, our science says this works, but art and science don't go together. And another thing which is that creativity cannot be democratic.
Yeah, it can't be. Yeah.
So if Wordsworth would have asked his neighbors, "Do you think if this poem is going to work?" He would have never been able, or Keats or Byron, they would have never written those poems because it's not about people's opinion. It's about a man's conviction about creating something. It can go wrong, sure, it can go wrong, but you cannot say that this is a sample. So this is the sampling. This will work. If that is true, then all the channels should be successful all the time. Why
Yeah.
aren't they? Only even in spite of their surveys and all those things, only 2 to 4% is a success rate. Why? You put all your fucking science into this, but still films don't do well.
Yep. I
So
mean, yeah, go on.
it's a very strange business which only works from here.
No doubt about that.
If it moves
No doubt.
here, then you've done it. No amount of surveys can stop that. There is
I
no
mean, if you,
logic.
sorry, go on.
Yeah. So there is no logic to this. And I don't think I know I always have this argument all the time with these platforms. I said, come on, if you really knew all this and it was so easy, then everybody would be a Raj Kapoor or a filmmaker. कि ये बना दो तो चल जाएगा, ये बना दो तो hit हो जाएगा. So I said, you will be making, you won't need anybody.
Yeah. I feel like if you take names like Shakespeare, right? And then you take names like John Keats, William Wordsworth, like all these poets, I'm willing to bet that when these plays came out, the Shakespeare stuff came out at the time it came out, all these poetry, English poetry that came out when it came out, most of the great paintings, poets, writers, all these people, when their stuff comes out, nobody understands it and nobody appreciates it because
And there are views.
they're way ahead of their time,
Yes,
right? And then later in time, I mean, you look at Stanley Kubrick, like everybody thought that he was
yes,
nuts.
yes. Very big example. Actually, you since you are from Pakistan, you understand. Sadat Hassan Manto,
Yes,
one of the biggest.
the yes, yes,
So
yes.
when Manto came, people wanted to kill him because he was far, far ahead, progressive, and the kind of naked stories he and the characters he created. People said he's gone. He's a madman. He writes such vulgar stuff, but he is one of the finest writers this area has ever produced. So he didn't bother what A or B or C would say about his stories. It was his expression, and for that matter, many writers. For um, Ismat Chotai, I don't know whether you heard of. She was a female writer, Urdu writer,
Mm,
and much ahead of her time. She talked about lesbianism. She talked about women right way back in '60s, and everybody said that this woman is a loose woman. What kind of writing is this? But she is now in the history. So I think this is you cannot make anything until unless you believe in that. It's your belief,
yeah.
and of course you have to be sensible about your belief. You can't just go berserk. But it may work, it may not work, but you have to do it. There's no other way. There's no other way.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I think another aspect nowadays is we are so polarized that there's always this fear of if I make this, will I
Yeah,
offend somebody in that?
yeah,
Which
that's a terrible thing.
which film of mine are you watching right now? I'll give you an example if that's the one. Are you watching In Search of My Sister or Citizen of Moria?
Yes, sisters.
Okay. So I won't talk about it, but basically for me it was so important that you to not to highlight an issue through characters, through protagonists is fantastic, right? But you also have to understand to make it more legitimate, to give it a little bit more voice, to give it that arm that it's not a propaganda piece. You have to get in a narrative or in a documentary, you have to have the other side come in and
Absolutely,
present
absolutely.
their views, right? And what that does is it gives your protagonist more validation in the long run by the film ends.
True.
I can't tell you how many times, when I've been told by people that it's a great film, but then they'll be like, when I was watching, I'm like, what am I watching? And by the time it ended, I was like, oh, okay. So I think that's very, very important that if you're looking for box office hits, then you need to make films like, I don't know, Dilwale Dulhania Le Jayenge or E.T., Jurassic
Yeah,
Park, and all that stuff. But art itself, like it's just you need to have that expression, like you said. It's so important, like to say what you want to say, regardless of what anybody else thinks.
yeah. If you're fearful in that, then you're neither here nor there. It doesn't work.
Yeah,
You know.
100%. 100%. Do you think there's a lot of political pressure on movies in India? Not
See,
intentionally or unintentionally.
there is always pressure. The job of the government is to put pressure. So yeah, but still, our country being a judiciary being very strong here, there are way outs. It's not that if the government says something, it's done and dusted. So you have a system that you can go up to the highest court, and there have been many instances where films got stuck and then they were released later by the courts and things like that. So that's one thing which is good for people who want to say different things. But yeah, but this is happening worldwide. The voices are throttled, voices are intimidated. So that's all is a reality. It's not fiction, unfortunately. But yes,
art changes the world, right? I mean, you believe that, I'm sure. I believe that, not because we are in this field, but
Yeah,
whether you read books or it does change the world. I mean, if you look at, like, we're talking about Shakespeare,
yeah.
John Keats, we're talking about all these great poets like, Ghalib and everybody else. Um, they had an impact, and that's why we still know about them, right?
True,
Otherwise,
true.
why would we? And it's one of the things that I really appreciate about the films that have been coming out from the your part of the world in the Indian cinema is that Netflix, yes, and streaming platforms have their algorithms and everything, but one of the things that has done is like all these small town films that are coming out and series that are
Yes,
coming out. I mean, that's real stuff, right? You can't beat
true,
that, and I
true.
appreciate that a lot because the mainstream cinema. I mean, how many people remember? I don't even remember any mainstream film in the last 15,
No,
20
you
years.
don't, because it's all floss. There's nothing to no honesty in it. It is just you just watch it and forget about it. There's you don't take home nothing. So you see, the earlier cinema was that had commercial ingredients, but at the same time, there used to be some kind of a message. There used to be some kind of a, layering into to the story. Now there are no layers. It's song, dance, fight, this, that, and then you finish, come home. So you don't take anything home back. That's the unfortunate part. I'm very, very. I must mention that I'm extremely impressed by Iranian cinema. The kind
Yes.
of films Iranians are making, I said hats off to them. With their kind of society, with their kind of problems, there are still people who are telling very, very bold stories.
Yep. Yep.
One of my favorite film is Osama. I was blown when I saw Osama. Have you seen Osama?
No, I have not. I've heard about it. I have not seen
Oh
it yet.
yes, you have to see it. I mean, it just shakes you up. And some of the female directors making extremely good and bold films
Yep.
living in a society like that, very, very progressive. I all the time tell the youngsters in India, I said, look at, so it is not your geography or your political influence which can always throttle you. If you really want to say something, you find a way to do that.
There's really two good movies that from Iran that I've seen. Um, one I saw at TIFF about 20 years ago called Exam, and another one is from the 90s called Color of Paradise. Exam, the basic premise is there's an exam at college or university, and there's women waiting outside to write the exam, and they're talking about their problems. That's the whole film, and it's brilliantly
Wow.
done. And Color Paradise, oh God, that movie is gonna like gut wrench you. It's about this blind kid, I think age of 8 or 9 or 10, who's trying to win the affection of his father.
Yeah.
I would highly recommend you watch those two films. I think Color Paradise was done by Majid Majidi, I think his name is.
Majid Majidi, right?
Yeah, he also did a film in India.
Yeah, that
Um,
was the first film. I didn't like that film, but
yeah,
but
but I don't know why. Yeah.
I think he got fascinated by the Bollywood cinema and made that film. But anyway, so but I can't
Beyond
take
the
away. He's
Clouds.
made some good cinema. He's created some good films.
Yeah, for sure. Have you seen? There's a director in Pakistan, the only director I watch if his movies come out. You know what, Shoaib Mansoor?
Yes,
Have you seen Bol?
I haven't. Which one?
Bol, like
Bol. No, I haven't seen it.
Khuda ke liye, in the name of God.
Khuda ke liye I've seen. Yeah, it
Okay,
released here in theaters.
I would highly
Beautiful.
recommend watch Bol. It's one of those
Yeah,
movies that you cannot imagine it was made in that part of the world 10 years
yeah.
ago or 15 years
Yes,
ago.
I agree with you. Even Khuda ke liye was a terrific film.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah,
Achha,
I highly recommend.
It's the same Pakistan which churns out C great Punjabi films and all those uh, melodramatic stuff all the time. And at the same time, you have certain makers who make sensitive films like this. And again, the governments are not very happy about certain ideas and thinking. But yeah, so I think the brave people.
Well, I think that's where it goes to, right? It's like, okay, I think what has happened is art was initially made. I mean, whenever art started, it's a form of expression. That's all
True.
it always been. That's why it's been made. Like that's what it is. It's like just expressing yourself. Now it's like, okay, if I'm going to express myself, who am I going to tick off? Who am I not going to tick off? What's the checkbox? And in doing so, you just lose the idea and never goes forward,
True.
right? So I think, and that's what's happening, I think, everywhere, even here. It's like you can't make a movie like now. Yeah, you can't make a movie if certain checkboxes are checked, and that's not art.
Yeah. How's the Canadian cinema? Are they making movies here or
Yeah, the thing with
they?
Canadians, the Canadian pro cinema problem is that it's that we do make stuff, but what happens with us is because majority of the time, the films, I would say more than majority of the time, the films that are made are the big films are funded by grants and stuff, right? So when the crew gets their grants, I'm not speaking for everybody, I'm speaking in most cases, grants, they make the film, they will get it on a TV station here or a platform, go through festivals, and then that's where it ends. There's because you've already been paid. This is my theory. Now, if you make you don't go, you don't take that film to Hollywood. The only ever film that was nominated for an Oscar that was Canadian, to my knowledge, is Sweet Hereafter by Adam McGowan. That was in '90s. But you don't take it to the Hollywood level. Now, it's not Hollywood level is not like, some sort of top of the world, but it's where the audience is. That's just the way it is. That
True,
majority
true,
audience.
true.
And we
It's
don't
a box
take it there.
office.
Yeah, and we don't take it there. It doesn't go beyond the Canadian borders because it's been accepted here. Let's move on to the next project. And that to me is my biggest pet peeve with the Canadian cinema is that it's just made for the Canadians. Maybe some exceptions that will go into Europe markets and everything, but that's about it. Like
Mm.
the films that in Search of My Sister and Citizen of Moria. Citizen of Moria is about an Persian Afghan filmmaker. If I was to the way we made the films where we were privately funded and everything, but I could have been okay with getting privately funded money and just putting it out there for festivals and just move on. But to this day, it's been 3 years, we're still pushing the film, even though they're on platforms, just constantly marketing it because you just want to have a wider audience. You want to tell the story to the
Yeah.
world
Somebody told me a very interesting thing. He says, wherever in the world, if cinema has survived, it is because of the star system. If
because
there
of
is
the
no
what,
star
sorry?
system, cinema does not survive.
Star system?
Yes. He says,
Uh,
Hollywood has stars, it has survived. China has stars, it survives. India has stars, it survives. Look at, and he is quite right because,
I think so
see,
too.
European cinema or Russian cinema for that matter, they were the leaders at one time of good
Hmm.
cinema. Non-existent cinema at the moment, French cinema or British, because there are no stars. So he says stars are very important for any industry to flourish. Wherever there are no stars, industry doesn't flourish.
That's a very interesting observation, and I agree with it. And I wonder how that's going to be in the next 20 years because stars are fading away from Hollywood,
Yes,
and
yes.
stars are fading away from Indian cinema as
Everywhere,
well.
everywhere. They're not real stars. I mean,
Yeah.
if you say that you have to go back to 80s, 90s, or you know, the real stars, if you talk about in India also, if you go, then you have to go back to Amitabh Bachchan's and Shah Rukh Khan's and the younger one. They're popular, they're stars, but you know what I mean? That
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree.
longevity and that lifespan. I wonder if they can have that kind of a longevity.
Yeah, no, I agree. I totally agree. I think the star part, like look at Tom Cruise. He's in his early
Yeah,
60s, right? And
true.
he
Yeah.
still attracts millions of people.
Yes, yes.
But yeah, no, this has been a great. I mean, we can keep talking about this with no
Yeah, Jawad.
solution in sight, but let's just wrap it up on one little note. How do you think we revive poetry and music and storytelling in any kind of cinema, what's the solution? What's the first attempt that we can make to take go to that direction?
I personally feel that we have to read our literature and our poetry, uh, so that this sensibility, this the feeling in your persona, like the zuban comes so natural to me. It's because it's ingrained, because I've read it. I have read literature, I have read poetry, I listen to poetry all the time. So anything, when there is a romantic situation or there is something, the thoughts come in my mind, the music comes into my head, that can I say it like this, in a shape of a ghazal or in a shape of a song, or maybe I can, just recite something. So that sensibility has to come when people start reading more their own literature and their own poetry, which is non-existent at the moment. People don't read.
Mhm. What can be done to publish books like that? Like, is there
There are
should be
plenty. Actually, there
are
are
there?
plenty. The problem is that reading habits are dying.
No, but is there a way to sort of rebrand and remarket them to
See,
like,
the
through like
Amazons of the world have all these books, but thing is, it's not in fashion to read. You understand? I'm an old fashioned guy. I read three newspapers every day in the morning. When
mm-hmm.
my daughter was 16, I said, start reading newspaper. So she just looked at me. So after 4 5 days, I said, okay, just read the film section. That at least that will attract you. So she again kept quiet. So I was quite irritated. I said, why you listen? No. She said, Papa, please, everything is on my mobile. I don't have to open this. And I get information much before than you get. So this is the new culture. Everything is here. So it's a quick, oh, you have to read a headline and you're done.
Yeah, yeah. That's a problem not just with the kids, it's a problem with adults,
Yeah.
more so
So
adults.
and the span of attention is so short that if it doesn't, hold you for that fraction of second, they move on somewhere else.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's true. And one of the things that I think that might happen before we get back to the way that is, because, first cinema came, then TV came, then the internet came, then the social media came, phone, VCR, DVD players. Now everything is like on a chip, right? I wonder. I mean, the next set of technology could be, which they're already talking about, like, like the VR headset or AR
Yeah.
headset. And then after that, what is it? Is it like something
Yeah.
implanted
Go
in
into
your
the brain straight.
brain, and then
No,
and
me,
you're just
no,
you're just
nothing
being
in between, straight away in your brain. So you're watching
right?
everything inside.
Yeah.
God
So
knows,
I
it might be the reality one of these days.
I think so. I think that's where we're heading. I really think. I mean, if you
Yeah,
look at the movie,
yeah,
so there've been so many movies that have been made about it, right? Like
true. Yeah,
right.
and
So
all
it's
the
just
movies in 60s and 70s were made. We used to think, oh, it's all fictional. That has all become reality.
yeah, yeah, 100%. So
So
it'd be interesting
somewhere
times.
the human imagination is based on something. It's not all
Yeah,
in the air.
yeah, 100%. And again, goes back to how arts changed the world, right? So
Yes,
on
yes.
that note, I think we've covered this topic quite interestingly. But thank you so much, Shashi, for
Thank you,
joining. I
Jawad.
appreciate
Always
it.
nice talking to you. And
Pleasure.
yeah,